ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hi News Daily listeners. I'm Danielle O'Neill and I've got a new podcast I want to share with you. It's called Expanse, Uncropped. And at a time where it feels like division is the norm, I've gone back to a story from the 60s that was incredibly divisive to try and see what lessons we can learn. It's a wild story with farmers and UFOs and media pylons. Check it out by following Expanse on the ABC Listen app.
Before we start today's episode, I wanted to remind you that we have a listener survey up on our website and we'd love to know what you think of the podcast. Thanks to everyone who's already shared their thoughts. We're going to be closing the survey really soon. It only takes a few minutes, it's anonymous, and your response will help us deliver on what you'd like to hear next year. Thousands of us travel through Southeast Asia every year, and it can at times be risky. But the story out of Laos this week is devastating. 19-year-old Melbourne woman Bianca Jones has died, and her friend, 19-year-old Holly Bowles, also from Melbourne, is in intensive care after what appears to be methanol poisoning from drinks they consumed. 3 other travellers have also died. Today, the ABC's Southeast Asia correspondent, Lauren Day, explains what's unfolded. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Lauren, it's every parent's nightmare. Holly Bowles and her best friend and footy mate Bianca Jones, they were just on a holiday of a lifetime, and now Bianca has died and Holly is still in intensive care. It's quite devastating.
It really is, Sam. It must have been just such an agonising week for both of the families of these 2 young women. And of course, now we've had this devastating news that Bianca Jones, who was in hospital up in Udon Thani, up in northern Thailand, has died. Her family released a statement saying that she was surrounded by love, that they were comforted by the knowledge that her spirit had touched so many people, and they thanked everyone for the support and love that they've received this week, but asked for privacy while they grieve. And of course, Bianca's best friend, Holly Bowles, is still on life support in hospital in Bangkok. So this also just must be so devastating for her family as they wait by her bedside.
Yeah, it really is so shocking. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, paid tribute to Bianca in Parliament.
Our first thoughts in this moment are with her family and friends who are grieving a terrible and cruel loss. This is every parent's very worst fear and a nightmare that no one should have to endure.
Along with the independent MP Zoe Daniel, she was really highlighting that it could have been any of us or any of our kids.
I know that so many members of our community are connected to these girls, to these families. I feel your grief. Our hearts are broken. Thank you, Speaker.
Yeah, I think that really hits home for so many people. So many young Australians travel throughout Southeast Asia. It's always been such a rite of passage for people, the Southeast Asian gap year or the schoolies trip. And it's such an innocent thing that anyone should be able to, go to a bar and have a drink and expect that, they can go home safely. And so I think this will really hit home with a lot of people, with a lot of parents, with a lot of young people who just really feel that it could have been any one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And Holly Bowles' father, Sean Bowles, he spoke to reporters outside a Bangkok hospital where his daughter is being treated before the death of Bianca. What did he have to say back then?
He just looked absolutely shattered. He was thanking everyone for their support and asked for privacy. He said that he just wanted to spend as much time as he could with his daughter, Holly.
Right now our daughter remains in intensive care unit in critical condition. She's on life support. We'd just like to thank everyone from back home for all the support and love.
Dale Bowles, his brother and Holly's uncle, also spoke about being so far away, but I'm sure even those who are at Holly's bedside must just feel incredibly helpless at the moment.
Everybody wants to do their part, even the smallest thing at this point in time, to try and alleviate some pressure off Holly's parents so that they can just be with Holly, just keep fighting. At this point, that's all we can ask her to do is just keep fighting.
So now, Lauren, let's just have a look at what we know about what has happened here. What have we pieced together so far?
Well, as you mentioned, they were on this backpacking vacation in Southeast Asia. They were in Laos, staying at a hostel in the tourist town of Vang Vieng, which is a popular party town. A lot of backpackers go there to party, to do adventure sports. And they were staying at a hostel called the Nana Backpackers Hostel. Now, the manager of the hostel told the media that the women had joined a big group of guests for free shots of Lao vodka to start their nights last Monday as a gesture of hospitality by the hostel. The women then went on for a night out to a number of other local bars. But he said that no other guest reported a problem from drinking at the hostel, and staff only became concerned when the girls failed to check out when about 24 hours after they went drinking, and they were taken to the hospital in the early hours of last Wednesday morning. Their conditions deteriorated quickly and they were transported to a bigger hospital in Vientiane before being sent on to Thailand, to those two hospitals, one in Bangkok and one in Udon Thani.
According to the reports, there was something like 100 guests offered free shots at this hostel. You actually spoke to the owner of that hostel. What did he have to say about it all?
I did. He said that he was confident that the poison drinks were not sold at his bar. He said that no other guest got sick and that he'd never had an issue in all the time that he'd had the business open, I think about 8 years. He said that he would never add methanol to any of his spirits. He was confident that they were all safe. And he also said that police had already tested all of the alcohol at his bar and found that he's done nothing wrong. Of course, we'll see what transpires with the police investigation. It's been pretty lacklustre, I'd have to say, so far. And the hostel owner told me that yesterday the police had came, but he'd already purged all of the CCTV cameras because they automatically purge after 5 days. So I think there'll be a lot of pressure now on that police investigation going forward, and a lot of people who really want answers here.
Oh my gosh, absolutely, because the police didn't even shut down the hostel or the bar at the hostel after these people fell ill.
It's unbelievable.
It's incredible.
It's incredible by Australian standards, absolutely. But I think there'll be a lot of international pressure now on the Laotian police. I mean, everyone we've spoken to in Laos says do not hold out any hope that they'll get to the bottom of this. There's a possibility that international investigators will now assist with this investigation because everyone wants to get to the bottom of this, to find out where this suspect alcohol has come from and hopefully hold someone accountable for this horrible tragedy.
Yeah, okay, and I can see that police have been ordered back to the hostel now, some days later, of course. So the owners and management of this hostel say the girls went out drinking elsewhere. We don't know much about that though, do we?
Not yet. There are a few bars that have been mentioned. There's a bar called JD's that we know that they went to, and a few of the other people who've fallen ill also went to. So I'm sure that that bar will also be the centre of attention here. There's a young backpacker that I've been speaking to who's actually compiling a list, and he's done a spreadsheet of all of the sick people, where they drank and what the common denominators are. So I'm sure that investigators will be very interested in what he's gathered, which sounds like more than the police at this stage.
We know, of course, the scale of this is quite shocking because 2 other Danish women in their 20s, so very young again, have died. An American man has also now died from this suspected poisoning, and many others are ill, aren't they? Just tell me about that.
That's right. We know at least 10 people have fallen ill as the result of what we suspect is a mass methanol poisoning event. There's a group of British tourists who've been rushed to hospital, about 6 of them. And according to the London Times, a 28-year-old British lawyer, Simone White, is also in hospital after allegedly being served a drink containing methanol while on holidays. So this is really wide-reaching and really concerning for everyone. And it's a big time of year for travelling in Southeast Asia, and schoolies is right around the corner. So this is no doubt concerning for a lot of travellers and a lot of parents of young travellers as well.
So, Lauren, let's look now at what we know about what Holly and Bianca and the other travellers consumed. It's suspected it contained methanol. What do we know about that?
Yeah, well, methanol is a clear liquid chemical that is often deliberately and illegally added to alcoholic beverages, particularly in countries in Southeast Asia, because it's a cheaper alternative to ethanol, which is the type of alcohol that you'd normally find in drinks. Of course, alcohol production is a lot less regulated in countries like Laos, like Indonesia, like Thailand. And also, alcohol import tax is very high. So they often try to cut costs with this, but it's highly dangerous. It's highly toxic. As little as a single shot can be fatal. And we've seen, just how deadly it can be in this cluster. But in Bangkok, where I live, just a few months ago in August, there was a cluster of methanol poisoning, which left 6 people dead and 31 people in hospital. So it's extremely alarming and extremely dangerous. And we're seeing again just how dangerous methanol can be.
Yeah, and it's odourless and it's colourless, right? So you'd have absolutely no idea that you were actually drinking it until you became ill, I suppose. Professor David Ranson, he's the head of Monash University's Department of Forensic Medicine. On ABC TV, he explained why it reacts so badly in the human body.
Now, methanol, unfortunately, breaks down in the body two very poisonous chemicals. Going through formaldehyde, an embalming fluid, it goes into formic acid and formate, and those particular chemicals in the body damage the kidneys, the nervous system, multiple organs of the body, causing...
It's pretty scary, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It's extremely scary. And one of the things that I've found scary is that the symptoms initially can seem so much like just a really bad hangover. I spoke to a young man who survived a methanol poisoning in Bali a few years ago, and he said initially he just thought it was a really awful hangover. He had a headache, he was exhausted, he was vomiting, nauseous. But the thing that alerted him to the fact that this was different was his blurred vision, and it was only getting worse. He could barely see, a metre in front of him, and he said that's what triggered him to go to hospital, and he realised, this isn't just a hangover, I've been poisoned here. So it's extremely alarming, but authorities are saying look out for those symptoms because this can be serious and it can be deadly.
Yeah, and early treatment, like anything, is really important. Oh, so many Australians, Lauren, they travel into Southeast Asia as backpackers. And as you say, schoolies is coming up. That's now a destination for schoolies. How do we make sure that they're safe when they go into these areas when it comes to drinking? Yeah,
well, the official advice is that travellers need to consider the risks when drinking and be careful with drinks made from spirits, particularly if they suspect that they might be homemade spirits or if they can't see the bottles or labels on the spirit bottles. And they should only drink at reputable venues. The best way for people to keep safe is to stay away from cocktails or mixed drinks. You see buckets being sold, definitely avoid that. And also anything that is really cheap or free, I think should ring alarm bells. I know when I'm travelling in this region, which I do a lot, I know that drinks, particularly in Thailand, are expensive because of the import taxes. So if they're not, that usually triggers to me that this is something to be wary of. But also sticking to things that are in bottles and cans, beers, wine where you can see the bottle, I think is probably the safest way to go and would definitely lower people's risk of being caught up in something like this.
Yeah, well, of course our hearts really go out to the families of these Australian girls. But, getting to the bottom of what happened here is really vital, isn't it, Lauren? For the safety of travellers and for the families of these victims, there has to be a proper police investigation.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that international pressure will ensure that there is some kind of police investigation here. It's been very lacklustre, as we mentioned, to date, and that's very disappointing for all of the families involved. But I think the next step will be keeping up that pressure, and no doubt the Australian authorities will be putting that pressure on authorities in Laos to make sure that they find out exactly how such an awful tragedy could have happened.
Lauren Day is the ABC Southeast Asia correspondent based in Bangkok. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed and Cara Jensen-McKinnon. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. Please take a few minutes to fill out our listener survey, which is on our website. We'll be closing submissions soon and reading all of your contributions. I'm Sam Hawley. ABC News Daily will be back again on Monday. Thanks for listening.